Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm Jess Birken with Birken Law Office, and with me today is my good friend Tom Wertish of Novallus Insurance. Hey Tom.
Hi, thanks for having me, Jess.
Thanks for being here. So one of the things I'm really hoping you can help me with today is explaining the insurance that startups need. So I help a lot of people start their nonprofit organizations, and a lot of times those clients are surprised that they need insurance as a nonprofit. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the types of insurance that brand new organizations will need.
Sure, certainly. Thanks for having me. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that nonprofits have is thinking that there's really nothing to risk, there's nothing to lose, and certainly that's not the case. When you look at startups, one of the most important ones to consider, insurance products to consider, would be directors and officers insurance. Directors and officers insurance covers board members for legal problems in their capacity as serving as a board member. It's definitely something important for them because if there's a lawsuit, they'll name the nonprofit and they'll name the individual, while your nonprofit might not have a lot at risk. Certainly your individual board members do.
Yeah, so if you don't understand sort of the way corporate structures work, just as a brief 101, the corporate body theoretically protects the directors from liability. But any good attorney worth their salt who's suing your nonprofit is going to name all of the directors individually as well as the nonprofit corporation. So y'all need some insurance because you don't want to just be serving on a board, being personally liable as fiduciaries and not have coverage. I mean, basically, you have limited liability as a nonprofit board member so long as you're not paid for your service. But even if your articles of incorporation say we're going to indemnify or defend our board members, how are you going to pay for that, right? So you hope that the insurance will pay for your defense in the case that something happens. So, Tom, maybe you can tell us like 2 or 3 scenarios where you've seen directors and officers insurance get tapped into. Like,
Sure.
What are some of the claims that can happen?
Yeah, well, there's certainly a wide variety of ways that directors and officers insurance can be used. I guess one example that I would give is if a large donor makes a big donation and they want it earmarked for a particular purpose.
And that's called a temporarily restricted gift, so you have to use it for what they said.
Legal term, sure. And let's say, I don't know, they're maybe rescuing puppies or something like that. And they're like, I'm going to give you $100,000 to rescue puppies.
Woohoo!
And that's great. But you were like, well, I have this money. I got this really great office lease opportunity. I'm going to put 10,000 of that into my office lease. Or I'm
rescue the puppy office.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Or I'm going to hire some staff. We have all these other things we want to do, and we really want to do it. But that money was earmarked for rescuing the puppies, not for hiring staff, office, maybe equipment, some other things. So that donor gets upset, sues the nonprofit and say, well, you misrepresented yourself, you misallocated my funds. That might be one example of a directors and officers insurance coming in handy. And think about it, even if the suit goes nowhere, like you said, how are you going to pay to defend yourself? So a directors and officers insurance policy might cost you the equivalent of 2 hours of a defense attorney's time for a year.
Amen to that, right?
And, typically it would take a lot more than 2 hours of work to defend a case like that.
Yeah, even just responding to the first piece of paperwork that comes would be more than 2 hours. Do you have any other examples of the way D&O can be claimed?
Yeah, there's so many. Another one that might be important to talk about is, let's say, in our Save the Puppies campaign, we come up with this new, thunder jacket or something to help dogs, from lightning and thunderstorms.
Oh, sure, yeah, because some dogs are really scared of lightning.
Yeah, and you step on somebody's intellectual property in doing that. So, hey, we made this great jacket, we're, distributing it, we're raising funds for the nonprofit, but Joe's Puppy Coats has a patent on this puppy jacket that you infringed on. Maybe you unknowingly did it, but still, that's intellectual property that's at risk. It's just like a business. You can get sued for stealing other people's property.
Interesting. Yeah. I like this Rescue the Puppies organization. Somebody should start this. Thunder jackets and stuff.
We'll help them insure it and make sure it's legal.
That's right. Okay, so I think there's one last thing that I want to cover, and I see that a lot of small groups do this where they're good, like begrudgingly, like, okay, we have to buy directors and officers insurance, and then they just go get like quotes and pick the cheapest one. Is that the best strategy for getting insurance?
No. How many times can I say no? You have to have an agent that knows what they're doing and that doesn't just throw 3 quotes at you and be like, here you go. B, you have to make sure you spend time with the agent walking through the form to understand what's included, what's excluded. And then C, I give a little bit of onus on the individual to read the form too. So a lot of bad things can happen when you're not prepared, but if you're prepared, you really eliminate or reduce the risk of bad things to happen because you know what you have. And I think one of the things that I like to think I do better than some others is spend a little bit more time up front, getting to understand what's the mission, how are we accomplishing that, what do we have going on, give me the big picture, and then let's talk about, okay, here's an exposure, do we cover it, do we retain that risk, what are we comfortable with, and you might find out that a D&O policy that's $100 more a year covers you for 10 other things that the cheaper one didn't. So is that a better value, or is the $100 savings a better value? Right. I never have people excited about saving money when it comes to claim time.
Yeah, amen to that. People are never excited about saving money when it comes to claim time. Yeah, and that can be really important for nonprofits because nonprofits tend to do very specific things, and sometimes with very particularly vulnerable populations, or doing things that expose their volunteers or their staff or others to a lot of risk. Think dog rescues and dog bites, or working with the elderly, or working with children. And if your insurance doesn't cover the activities that your nonprofit is doing, that's a problem. Well, Tom, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Let's do another video because I think we need to talk about general liability.
Yeah, thanks for watching. We have a lot more to talk about. See you on the next one.
All right, thanks. Bye.